Hey there. Well, I'm back in the trailer. I've been away for it for a week now. I've come to realize that the way forward, there really is only one direction that I can go. I can't start putting in flooring now, even though as much as I'd like to, simply because I have to install the outriggers, which will correct the relationship between the ladder frame and the box. And once the outriggers are in and the box is able to rest on them, because basically the frame of the floor, the outer perimeter, which is 1.5-inch square aluminum tubing, that exists. That's still here right now. It's everything in the middle that has evaporated. But until I correct the relationship between the frame rails, there and there, and the box of the trailer, I can't start building the floor because the framing around the floor is going to have to attach into that aluminum tubing, and I can't just attach it and call it a day. I have to have things like the framing that I will be building and the height of the floor at the exact correct height before I can attach my floor to the existing, if that makes sense. It'll make sense when you see me building it later if it doesn't make sense now, but just trust me when I say I can't start doing that yet. So what can I start doing? Well, I haven't got my outriggers built and installed yet. So what I will need to do is start dismantling more things inside the trailer here. I need to take these dinette seats out. This one will be a little bit more work because there's wiring running through it. So all those wires are running through right there, and they are running above the bottom of the aluminum rail there. So I either cut the rail and then put it back together again after the fact, or cut all the wires. And in this case here, I'd rather cut the frame of this down at the floor. Down at the floor, it's not really structural down there, so I can cut a section out, lift the whole thing over those wires, and then put it back together later. But anyway, that's the way it is. So these will come out, and I need to take the kitchen out. So I'll be disconnecting piping and drainage and gas line for the stove. The heater is underneath there too. I'll need to take the whole cabinet out, but I might be able to leave the furnace in place and slip my floor in underneath it. The less I can take out, the better, because then the less I have to put back together. All of this needs to come out so I can repair the floor, and then this can go back in and be completely trued up. If you look at here, you see how this is actually bowing a little bit? It might not show up on camera, but it is. Because the floor was doing this whole thing was compressing, which popped this trim out at the top as well. So once the floor is corrected, this will all go back in nicely. And I will have to replace this whole side panel here, because that has been damaged from the floor buckling up at that location. So I have a fair bit of work ahead of me. No different taking these out really than it was to take out that bed box. So just undo some screws and take it out. Here it's also just one screw at a time, taking things apart, unscrewing it from the wall, unscrewing it from the floor, and working at it bit at a time until I get there. And because it's tedious work, I will speed things up for you a bit. Now, it may look like a simple box, but you might be surprised how difficult it was to actually take this thing apart. The screws were buried in the carpet. You couldn't see them. I had to feel for them and then find a little bump and then finally figure out there's a screw there. And once I found one screw, then I assumed that there are more, and so I was able to start looking for them. And as luck would have it, the opposite side of the trailer is not the same as this one. It is different, and you'll see that later on. This one was constructed by whoever deleted the slide. So they built this box to replace whatever was here previously. But it's still in decent shape, and so I can reuse it, and I will. I don't know if I'll keep the same carpet on it, but I can reuse the box portion of it. I will never leave a sharp screw sticking out of something, because if I do, I'm going to cut myself on it at some point in time. I'm looking at the slack in this hose here. This is going to my outside city water connection. So I'm looking at the slack in this hose here. I'm looking at the extra wire here, and then I realized, oh yeah, right. This used to be part of a slide out, and so this extra business is there, allowing for the slide to be able to move in and out. It's interesting too that there's a little fuse block here. So this line is fused. So this is actually smart. It's a little fuse block, but instead of an actual fuse, it's a 7.5 amp resettable fuse. So the way these work is you cut power to them and then you re-energize them and they reset automatically in that way. You can sure see how much the outside of the floor has dropped here compared to where my hand is. But in my hand to the edge of the wall is at least an inch drop, inch and a quarter maybe. Now these are all full of antifreeze right now, so if I were to cut them I'd have antifreeze all over the place. The question is do I think I can work around them with this business here? It lifts up, so I could slide a floor right underneath that. I should be able to work around this. The question is, do I want to? There must be framing in the wall here for these screws to go in. I'm sure what is down here interests me a lot more than it interests you. It's funny, what I do notice though is like I already picked up a bunch of screws and whatnot. There's still more. All the sawdust, all the garbage. It's good to see that none of the plumbing is leaking. That's good. There's this little resettable fuse that I was telling you about. So this is obviously power coming into it. You know, that's probably what energized the actual slide motor prior to it being removed. That angle bracket there, that must have been added in after the fact. Somebody, yeah, they must have put that in after the fact. And so here's a problem. I see what they did. So when they turned this into a wall, as opposed to the shallow slide that it originally was, they had to attach it to something in the middle, or they felt they did. And so they attached it to the framework that runs around the wheel well. Whoever put this in should have had the forethought to need to go underneath and put some kind of bracket underneath there attached to the actual frame itself to provide the strength for this. All I can do is speculate. I don't know what people were thinking. This could be, yeah, that's what this must be. It must be for the light that's up there running through the wall. So, I mean, part of me wants to vacuum this out and clean it up, but there's no point. This is all being ripped out anyway. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to pull out this plumbing, because I can work underneath it, I think. The most difficult part of all of that will be getting rid of the old flooring underneath that business there. It'll have to be surgical and done in such a way that I don't damage any of it. I just pulled up a section of lino here, and it's not really water damaged. Well, it's not water damaged where my foot is at all. So the softness here is just your basic terrible floor design and people walking on it over the years, and everything breaks down underneath you. Check this out. 2 more lag bolts going into the frame rails, meaning that the box was held to the frame by at least 8 points of contact. And even though those areas were completely rotted, there was still a little bit of something going on here.
At this point, I don't know if that makes me feel any better.
Okay, so similar to this side over here where I was pointing out the wires running through the framework, they're doing it over here as well. Well, for me it makes the most sense to cut the frame and then repair it after the fact. It's unfortunate, but this needs to come out in order for me to properly replace this flooring underneath here. I've seen other repair videos where people redo their flooring and they literally they'll kind of release the front of the cabinet and they'll try and cut the flooring back maybe an inch underneath the front of the cabinet and slip new flooring in under the front, but they're not really replacing the flooring then. They're just doing the visible parts of the flooring. For this to do the job that it needs to do and be correct, I need to replace all of it. So this does need to come out. Now, one thing that I've figured out already without even having to start taking it apart is that wheel well cover will not come apart the same way the other one did. This looks like it is, the carpet is wrapping all the way around. It's one piece, and so I will need to figure out how it comes apart. Took me a while to get this far because there were a lot of little hidden screws. However, now that I am here and the panel is loose, I can easily cut the bottom of this panel just straight down at these points, and then this can come straight out of here. What's underneath these wires, actually all of this was completely invisible. So what's interesting is, as I'm looking at this now, turn some light on here, I'm seeing where a wire was being pinched. Now it's just gone through the outer jacket. So something was, oh yeah, look at that. So there should have been some sort of grommet or protection for this wire, because that rough cut through the aluminum there. So this hole in the paneling, it was just hacked through after the paneling was put in place for them to run the wires, but when they hacked it through, they gouged up the edge of the aluminum, creating sharp edges here, which have been subsequently cutting into the jacket of the wiring. See, this is my previous home inspector eye coming out and figuring out what it is that I'm looking at. No matter, I can fix it. This is the weirdest little frame out job. This is factory. This was original carpet. Well, multi-tools for the win. I gotta say, it allows me to cut out this piece of show business and free up the wires. And now I have to cut the actual aluminum framework. And for that, I'm going to cut it in the two easiest places it will be to repair. And when I put it back in, I can just repair it. I won't be able to weld it, but I can make some brackets and either screw or rivet them in place so as to accomplish the same thing. When all is said and done, nobody will know the difference because it will be strong and all the repair areas will be hidden. I have to say that when doing any kind of work like this, cutting around wires, either with a reciprocating saw or a multi-tool, best practice would be to turn the power off. These pieces will be easy to put back in and repair when all is said and done. The things we have to do to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And it almost fits through the door too. I have to take this ledge off, which, this ledge here is where if you want to turn your dinette into a bed and you drop the table down, it sits on this ledge. That has to come off in order for me to get it out the door. Well, it doesn't feel like a whole bunch of progress. In the big picture, I guess you'd have to say that it is. Because I'm not just ripping everything out, but I'm dismantling it and taking it out in such a way that I can put it all back together again. I will know how it's come out. I need to do it systematically. Yeah, this is progress. I won't need to take apart anything more here or over there. Like in other words, other than ripping up flooring, I'm good all the way to the kitchen cabinet now. So when I come back at this, I think the next thing will be the kitchen cabinet and the refrigerator. Time will tell. I know this isn't the most exciting video. I'm just showing the process. I'm showing the work that's involved, not a how-to if you want to do it yourself. It's a big job. But yeah, just the process that I'm going through to get to where I want to get to, which is the finish line. So if you're still with me, watching my agony and and this process, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.